The Truth and the Circle Around It by K.G. Scott. Chapter 13. The Announcement. It's been a long time since Joe Myers went out with the boys and got drunk. He's been so wrapped up in this case for the past 3 years that he's long past exhaustion. Now he has been ordered to take a week off. So he called up a couple buddies, a cousin he used to hang out with, and an old flame. That was 20 hours ago. So by Joe's calculations, the hangover should begin to go away by this time tomorrow. That will be perfect timing, since he'll be getting on a plane to fly to Roanoke, Virginia, where his ex-wife Wanda and his children live. He has been able to find time around holidays over the past 2 years, but that has been it. So a summer visit while they're on break is going to be a welcome surprise for all of them. His son Brian is 15. He was born before Joe's dad died. He was too young to remember what caused his mom and dad to drift apart, but he remembers what tore them apart. His younger sister, Brianne, is 8. She also was old enough to remember the big blow-up, the age-old story of a law enforcement officer who spends more time at work than he can't talk about, than he spends at home. Stakeouts, undercover work, out of the blue flights to wherever. Phone calls in the middle of the night that lead to him getting dressed and rushing out. Yes, the list goes on, but you get the picture. Wanda finally got to the point where she needed help. The pressure and fear had taken its toll. She was on the point of a breakdown, and Joe knew it. He tried to be there. He tried to be there for her, and even took time off work to go with her to doctor's appointments. But he never took a leave of absence, which is what his friends tried to talk him into. After he missed an appointment for the 3rd time, she lost it. No one can really blame her for it. Joe certainly doesn't. But if you've ever been through something like this or been close to someone who has, I don't need to keep adding salt to the wounds. Joe has been thinking about an old friend a lot lately, his little Canadian buddy, Kevin Shears. Joe kept in touch with him for a while, but hasn't spoken with him for about 5 months. So he filled the kettle, put it on the stove, turned the burner on high, and grabbed the cordless phone. Joe stepped into the dining room, where his briefcase was left open to the table. He pulled out the day timer and flipped to S. Hello? Kevin answered the phone. Happy Canada Day, eh? Whirlwind? Joe said enthusiastically. Joe, you big bastard. What are you doing? Kevin recognized the voice right away and was happy to hear from his buddy. I just phoned to see if you need to be told today, Joe said with a laugh. Yeah, I'll tell you, Kevin laughs. Fuck off. He laughs again, this time being joined by his buddy at the other end of the line, along with a curious smile from Tracy. You fuck off. I'm the one calling. Joe continues to laugh as the two men go on giving each other a rough time the way good friends do. Hey, Joe, Kevin barks. What? Joe answers. What the fuck do you want? You out of money or something? Kevin is now beside himself laughing. I'll break you, you shrimp, Joe quipped. Ha ha ha. I'll bet you're in town or something, eh? Kevin asked through an attempt to stop laughing. No, buddy, I'm in Seattle at a friend's house. Actually, I don't know if he's even here right now, Joe said as he looked around from the safety of the couch. It's been a while, Joe, Kevin began. Then, as he asked the next question, his grin disappeared seriously. Is something up? Well, that's just it. Nothing is up. It's just been a while, like you said, and I suddenly thought of you. I have a couple weeks off, and I'm going home to see the kids. I thought maybe you'd like to come along. What would you say to a week on the beach and a tour of Virginia? Joe asked, with hope in his voice. Kevin was amazed and shocked, but very pleasantly surprised. Wow. Uh, shit, Joe, I don't know what to say. Well, I figured I needed an icebreaker with the wife, and you could use a little culturing. So what do you say? Joe offered. Well, Joe, I can't afford it. It sounds great, but I wouldn't want you to feel you had to cover for me either. He gives Tracy a pinch as she gets up to go to the bathroom. Joe can hear a little squeal and a slap on the arm she gives Kevin. Who is that? The maid? Yeah, she starts early, Kevin says through a smile. Seriously, Joe, I would love to come along, but I'm broke. It's been pretty thin lately. Hey, look, I could cover you. I owe you a little, Joe answered. Well, maybe, but I've got classes too, Kevin replied. Oh, yeah. What is it you were taking? Joe asked. Police college, remember? Kevin said almost sarcastically. Law enforcement. Right now, I'm taking the psychic stuff. It's almost as weird as working with you. Actually, now I'll probably understand you better. Fuck you, Whirlwind, Joe barked. Then Kevin's alarm clock went off. Oh shit, shower time, Kevin said out loud. Do you have to go? Joe asked. Soon, I guess, Kevin answered. Tracy and I are going to Sylvan Lake with some friends today. I'm going to spend all day in the hot tub. I'm going to start without you, Tracy called out as she turned on the shower. I'll let you go, buddy, Joe said. Not yet, Kevin said sharply. I'm awake now, and I need to ask you something. Then he called out to Tracy to go ahead, that he'd been there in a few minutes. Look, I've been out of the loop for a few months. Has there been anything I should know about? Joe took a couple seconds as he took a sip of warm beer out of a nearly full bottle from the night before. Well, then he guzzled half of it and sat back to slouch into the cushions. I shouldn't tell you this, but yeah, something big going to happen soon. But we don't have a fucking clue what it is. Our inside people have been flushed. They've got a mole, but I don't fucking know who it is. Any ideas? Kevin started. Ours or yours? I'm pretty sure it's one of yours, whoever it is. They are in Grand Prairie, Joe said. How do you know that? Kevin inquired. Because the phone calls we've traced are from phone booths in GP, Joe explained. They're using the James Bond shit again. Every time this guy calls Alvarez, he's using one of those voice scramblers. Can't you screen that shit out? Kevin suggested. Normally we could, but this guy's imitating a voice box. Joe says in frustration. He sounds like a fucking cyclone from Battlestar Galactica. Kevin's eyes grew to the size of plates as he took a deep breath. Joe could hear it over the phone and asked, What? I need to hear those tapes, but I'll have to do it with you and Nguyen, Kevin said. What? Do you know who this could be? Joe sat straight up, staring dead ahead. If I do, we're all in for a huge disappointment, Kevin started. Then, after a pause, if I'm right, we're all going to Winnipeg. How the fuck do you know about Winnipeg? Joe said loudly. Oh, fuck. Now I don't need to hear the tapes. Kevin sunk flat onto the sheets. He took a deep breath, and a tear fell from each eye, dripping past each ear and soaking into the pillow. Can you fly up here today? I'll be there this afternoon, Joe said almost blankly. Kevin reached between the waterbed mattress and the frame to pull out his Beretta 9mm. As he pulled back the mechanism to check the chamber, he told Joe, "I'll see you then." Then he pulled out the clip to double check, pushed it back in, put it on safe, and hung up the phone. "We're not going to the lake today, are we?" Tracy asked with a tremble in her voice as she stepped out into the main room. As Kevin shook his head no, she fell and stepped slowly back against the wall and began to shake. "What? What?" She lost her voice and could only speak with a whisper, and she stared at the pistol. "I'm an undercover cop," Kevin told her. "I have been for a real long time. I thought it would be—" "Stop," Tracy bellowed. "Don't tell me anymore. I'll be okay with it if she swallowed. Her face was scared and blank at the same time. "I guess you could use the word shocked." Kevin got up and moved over to her. He pulled her up to him and pressed his body to hers against the wall. "I'm sorry, I don't know how to make this right, right?" she asked. "What can be wrong with it?" "Damn, well," he stammered and shook his head as he looked into her eyes. "You aren't doing anything wrong, are you?" she asked seriously. "No. What do you mean? Am I doing drugs or something?" he said as he looked at her. "Well, no. I know for sure you are not doing anything like that," Tracy said bluntly. "But I mean, you aren't the kind of guy who would do anything wrong. You're almost too nice, too sweet, too good." Kevin let out a sigh and closed his eyes as he rested his forehead on hers, and they began to brush their faces together, and their hands began to soften as they held each other. The moment became intense and relaxing all at the same time. They fell to the floor gently in a kissing slump as they began to move away from the wall. "I'm crazy about you. I'm in love, but I'm totally lost in you," Tracy said to him. A sensation of trust, love, fear, hope, admiration, and infatuation swelled through them as they looked deep into each other's eyes. "Just please don't get hurt. Please don't be a hero." "Tracy," he interrupted. "Look." She stopped him and squeezed herself hard against him. "I don't know what it is you're into, but I know you enough to know you are a wonderful and honest person. You're doing something right and important, and it scares me to death. Honey, I don't want to make you scared. I can't I can't tell you anything except you are safe, and I'll keep you that way," he said to her, but made the mistake of looking away. "That's the first time I've heard you lie," she said to him, then swallowed and shook in fear. "No, Tracy, please, don't take this the wrong way," he said forcefully as he looked into her eyes. "It's big, okay? This thing I'm trapped in, it's dirty and nasty shit." He rolled over and stood up. Then he took her hand and helped her get up. He walked her over to his love seat, and they sat down close to each other. He pulled a blanket up over her and took her hands in his. "Going to have to be away for a few days for sure, most likely longer. That guy on the phone is a good friend of mine. He's an FBI agent who I've worked with for a few years." Tracy's eyes ballooned as she sat up straight in amazement. I'm surrounded by very good people who are very, very good at what they do. They won't let me get hurt. They can't afford it. I'll be okay, I promise. How long have you had the gun hid in the bed? Tracy asked as she looked over at it sitting on the bed. As long as I've had all the others hidden through the house and in the car, he answered. There's more than one? She appalled. Yeah, he said with a sigh, and then dropped his head. He let go a huge breath and said, Would you like the tour? Shithead, she smiled. How many are there? Would you believe 6? He laughed. They looked at each other and she nodded yes as she began to laugh with him. A 22 caliber Mini in the bathroom cabinet, a 30-30 Winchester in the hall closet, a 357 Magnum under the seat of my car, a semi-automatic 12 gauge in the hatch of the car, a semi-automatic 22 paratrooper's rifle in the hatch, and the Beretta I changed your life with a few minutes ago. Where do you keep your bulletproof vest? She asked. He bit his lower lip and shrugged his shoulders while he scrunched his forehead. Do you have one? She asked very seriously. Uh, well, he looked at her. I do, but it's a pack vest. I carry all my clips and bullets in it. If I ever got hit, there's so much gunpowder there, I'd probably vaporize. She looked at him with amazement, wonderment, and a new respect. I've got 2 problems. What are they? He asked, expecting the worst. I'm hungry and I'm horny, she said as she pulled the blanket off and stood up. Then, how about you fire up some breakfast while I have a shower, and after we eat, I'll fuck the hell out of you, he told her as he stood up and walked past her towards the bed. We've We better call Donna before they leave. Go have a shower, she said with a growl as she kissed his cheek and let her hand softly run up and down his arm. I'll tell them you have to go to work. They don't know how many jobs you have. I'll make something up. 1737, July 1st, 1992, RCMP K Division, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Kevin put on his shoulder holster for the Magnum, but left the gun in the car. He put his leather jacket on over top and went into the offices of K Division. It was time to make a point again to Nick Ewan. It's got the it's got to be the police chief's conference, Kevin said as he sat down at the coffee table in Nick Ewan's office. If these guys are planning something big, that has to be it. It's the only thing of any importance going on in Winnipeg this month. Well, anything these fuckers will want to mess with. Okay, I think you're probably on the right track, Nick Ewan started, but these people like to create distractions. Only problem is, there are not too many regular distractions in Winnipeg. So if they try something, it'll be big. Maybe not a huge fire, but something. Yeah, you're right, Joe said. In other cities like Omaha, where there isn't much big crime, they had to be creative. Wasn't there a big chemical fire at a plant in Omaha last year? Kevin asked. The kid's catching on, McGeehan chuckled. So I need to do a little catching up, don't I? Kevin asked slyly. I suppose there are a few things you need to know, Joe answered. We will get one of the officers to take you down to the conference room. There is a task force we've set up. I want you to get familiar with everyone. After the meeting, Kevin was outfitted with a police bomber jacket with the big yellow letters under the Velcro flaps. He had $2,000 to do a little necessary shopping with and for expenses. Then he took all his goodies out of his car and put them in the unmarked Crown Victoria that had been signed out for him. He had a new, shiny badge in his pocket, a full set of riot team gear, and most importantly, a new attitude and a big boost of self-confidence. He had been clean and sober for almost 10 years. Oh, I hadn't told you that yet, had I? Well, it's true. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking he could use a good stiff drink of scotch, maybe even a couple Caesars. But his better sense took over, and the thought quickly went away. The last thing he needed was to lose control of his temper, and when he drank, that was the first thing to go. The next day, Kevin got up early. He had stayed in a hotel that night because now he had to hide. After a big breakfast, he got his hair cut and colored, shaved off his mustache, bought a pair of safety glasses that looked like normal glasses, and went to a tanning booth. He had just over a week of training with the team. Nguyen and Joe were putting together before they loaded up and headed for Winnipeg. 0906, July 10, 1992, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Carla got off the plane and followed the crowd through the terminal to the baggage area. She headed to the turnstile everyone seemed to be going to, then looked up to see the bullet board with her flight number on it. Carla looked around to take in the scenery, but also because she was looking for the person with a sign with her name on it. A ride in a limo was part of the prize, so she expected someone dressed in a limo driver's uniform with a peak cap and driving gloves. She wouldn't be disappointed. Across the way, just beyond the end of the luggage turnstile, a man dressed just that way stood holding a sign in front of his chest. It was too far away for her to read, but it just had to be her driver. He was staring right at her with a huge grin. When you return to this storyline, the hair on the back of your neck will stand on end. Willie had managed to keep a fairly low profile in Red Deer, but word of his visit got around to a small circle of acquaintances. Just enough acquaintances for the word to get back to the police. Since then, the Alvarez gang had moved on to Winnipeg to prepare for the big deal. This was something Antonio had planned for a long time. This was something that the Visconti family would not approve of. But soon that wouldn't matter, because soon there wouldn't be a Visconti family to worry about. 0908, July 10, 1992, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. A surveillance team was placed outside the Calgary home of the Viscontis as the old man and his two children walked from the house to the car waiting at the side for them. A signal was given. The emergency response team trucks led the way, and unmarked police cars began to appear around corners and swoop down upon the house at high speed. Men in SWAT gear flowed out of the trucks at full sprints and swept upon the Viscontis and their bodyguards. One of the bodyguards pulled out a 9mm handgun, and 20 loaded barrels careened towards him with shouts to stop and drop or die trying. His face flushed with anger, confusion, and fear. He looked straight into the eyes of the officer he had the sights trained on, and instantly as his thumb moved up to pull back the safety, a wall of bullets tore him apart. Two other bodyguards pushed the Viscontis into the limo in time for the hail of gunfire to hit them, but not the family they were sworn to protect. As their bodies drooped against the car and began to slide down, the driver threw the big Lincoln into gear and tried to punch his way through. As he did, guns began to wave out the side windows from the interior of the car. In an instant, the rush of automatic fire from the police weapons was so much that no one could tell when one shot ended and another began. The partially open bulletproof windows quickly gave way under the onslaught of lead from close range, and inside the car not a creature would be stirring, not even a louse. 3 officers were hit, but none seriously. Then an officer yelled out that gasoline was pouring out underneath the still rolling car. Even though there was steam and smoke rising up from underneath the hood, the big engine was still running. The fuel ran quickly down the slope of the driveway, and just as officers began to jump back and away, leaking brake fluid under the hood ignited against one of the hot exhaust manifolds and dripped down to flame a small pool under the car. In an instant, the gasoline ran into the awaiting torch, and a whooshing hiss made its way up to the badly damaged tank at the rear of the car. Boom! The huge car leapt its trunk end high in the air. The percussion of the blast sent policemen lurching, leaping, and flying out of control in all directions. Bodies hit the ground, and the Lincoln came crashing down on its roof after flipping over completely forwards from the force of the blast. The arrest had not gone as planned. Up next, Chapter 14, It Hits the Fan, the truth and the circle around it.